June 22nd, 1944, Camp McCain, Mississippi. The transport train pulled into the station. Gefreiter Ernst Weber stepped off the rail car into suffocating heat. Around him, 300 other German prisoners shuffled forward in a daze. They had been traveling for 3 weeks. Tunisia to Norfolk, Norfolk across the American South. Every mile further from home. Every mile deeper into enemy territory. Weber was 26 years old, captured at Tunis in May 1943. He had spent the last 13 months in various prisoner camps, first in North Africa, then Virginia, now Mississippi. He was tired. He was homesick. He expected another prison camp with barbed wire and minimal rations. American guards directed the prisoners into formation. A camp officer stepped forward, speaking through a German translator. "You will be processed. You will be assigned barracks. You will receive clothing, bedding, and toiletries. You will be treated according to Geneva Convention standards. Cooperate, and you will be safe. Cause problems, and you will face consequences. Do you understand?" The prisoners nodded. They had heard similar speeches at every camp. The Americans were always correct, always professional, always following their rules. It was strange compared to what they had been told about brutal American prison camps. The processing took 2 hours. Each prisoner received a medical examination, a shower, clean clothes, and a bunk assignment. Then they were directed to the mess hall for their first meal at Camp McCain. Weber sat at a long wooden table with other prisoners. American guards handed out metal trays. Then came the food: bread, butter, soup, coffee, and something else. A small brown bar wrapped in silver and brown paper. Weber picked it up. The wrapper had bold letters: Hershey's. Below that, smaller text: milk chocolate. He stared at it. Chocolate. Real chocolate. Not the ersatz chocolate Germany had been producing since 1942. Not the brown paste made from roasted grain and chemical flavoring. Real chocolate, made from actual cocoa. He turned the bar over in his hands. It was surprisingly heavy for its size, about 1.5 ounces. The wrapper was intact, professionally printed, perfectly sealed. This was a factory product, mass-produced, given to prisoners as a routine ration item. Weber tried to remember the last time he had eaten real chocolate. 1941, maybe early 1942, before cocoa supplies from Africa were cut off, before everything good was replaced with substitutes. His hands trembled as he opened the wrapper. The chocolate was divided into 12 small squares. He broke off one square and placed it on his tongue. It melted immediately. Sweet, rich, creamy. The taste of milk and sugar and cocoa, pure and intense. Ernst Weber, veteran of 3 years of combat, survivor of the North African campaign, began to cry. Not quiet tears, full sobbing that shook his shoulders. Around him, other prisoners were having the same reaction. Grown men, hardened soldiers, weeping over chocolate bars. An American guard watched this scene with confusion. He leaned toward another guard and whispered something. The other guard shrugged. They did not understand. To them, Hershey's bars were ordinary. Every American soldier received them in their rations. They were cheap, mass-produced, nothing special. But to Ernst Weber and the 300 other German prisoners at Camp McCain, these chocolate bars represented something far more significant than candy. They represented the final, undeniable proof that Germany had already lost the war. Because if America could give premium chocolate to prisoners, what did they give their own soldiers? And if they have this much sugar, cocoa, and milk to spare, what chance did Germany have? That night, Weber wrote in a letter to his wife in Hamburg, "Today I ate real chocolate for the first time in 3 years. The Americans gave it to us like it was nothing, like they have so much they do not know what to do with it. I cried. I am not ashamed to admit it. I cried because I realized we are fighting a nation that feeds its prisoners better than we feed our officers. I cried because I know this war is already lost. I cried because you are starving in Hamburg while I eat chocolate in Mississippi. What kind of world is this? The letter would take 4 months to reach Hamburg, passed through censors on both sides. When it finally arrived, Weber's wife would read it 3 times before hiding it in a drawer. She would not show it to anyone. The words were too dangerous. Defeatism was punishable. But she would remember those words for the rest of her life. This is the story of how a Hershey's chocolate bar became a weapon more devastating than any bomb. The story of how sweetness defeated bitterness. The story of how America's abundance crushed Germany's scarcity. To understand why German prisoners wept over chocolate, you must first understand what they left behind. In 1939, when Germany invaded Poland, the average German citizen could still buy real chocolate. Not easily, and not cheaply, but it existed. Chocolate shops in Berlin and Munich sold bars made with genuine cocoa imported from African colonies. It was a luxury, but an available luxury. By 1940, as the war expanded, the Nazi government began rationing food. Sugar was restricted first, then butter, then meat, then coffee, then chocolate. Ration cards determined who got what and how much. Priority went to soldiers, then industrial workers, then everyone else. German soldiers in 1940 received decent rations. The Wehrmacht field ration included real meat, real butter, real coffee, and occasionally real chocolate. Not abundant, but adequate. Soldiers complained, but they were fed. The Africa Corps, deployed to North Africa in 1941, initially received good supplies. Rommel's logistics officers worked miracles getting food across the Mediterranean. But as British naval forces tightened control and supply lines stretched, the quality declined. Real chocolate disappeared first, then real coffee, then real butter. By 1942, the Africa Corps was eating substitutes. Ersatz coffee made from roasted grain, ersatz butter made from industrial fat, ersatz chocolate made from roasted barley, artificial flavoring, and chemicals designed to approximate the taste of cocoa. It was brown. It was bitter. It tasted nothing like chocolate. Ernst Weber remembered the first time he was issued ersatz chocolate in early 1942. The ration officer handed out small brown blocks wrapped in plain paper. No labels, no branding, just brown blocks that crumbled when you bit them. Weber took a bite and immediately spat it out. It tasted like burnt grain mixed with motor oil. The texture was grainy, dry, falling apart in his mouth. There was no sweetness, no cream, no cocoa flavor, just bitterness and chemical aftertaste. "What is this?" Weber asked the ration officer. "Chocolate," the officer replied without emotion. "This is not chocolate. It is what we have. Eat it or do not eat it. Those are your choices." Weber tried to eat it. He managed 2 bites before throwing the rest away. Other soldiers did the same. They called it braune Scheisse, brown shit. Nobody ate it unless they were desperately hungry. By 1943, even ersatz chocolate became scarce. The Africa Corps was cut off, surrounded, starving. Weber's unit went days without food. When rations arrived, they contained hard biscuits and canned meat of questionable origin. No chocolate, no coffee, no luxuries of any kind. When Weber was captured at Tunis in May 1943, he weighed 143 pounds. He had weighed 172 pounds when he deployed to Africa in 1941, 30 pounds lost to combat, heat, and malnutrition. The first meal he received as a prisoner was provided by British forces: bread, tea, canned beef. It was simple but adequate, better than he had eaten in months. He ate slowly, afraid his stomach would reject real food after so long eating scraps. Then the British transferred him to American custody. The Americans fed him differently. More food, better quality, and small things. Sugar in the coffee, butter on the bread, jam. Little luxuries that seemed impossible. But no chocolate, not yet. That would come later, at Camp McCain, on June 22nd, 1944. Camp McCain was established in 1942 as a training facility for American troops. By 1944, it also housed German and Italian POWs who worked in nearby farms and lumber mills. The camp held approximately 3,000 prisoners at its peak, mostly Afrika Korps veterans captured in Tunisia. The camp was typical of American POW facilities: wooden barracks arranged in neat rows, a mess hall, medical facilities, recreation areas, guards who were professional but not cruel, barbed wire fences, watchtowers, everything according to regulations. What shocked German prisoners was not the facilities, but the abundance. America had so much of everything that even prisoners lived comfortably. 3 meals a day, clean clothes, medical care, mail delivery, recreation time. It was better than how German soldiers lived in active combat zones. Ernst Weber was assigned to Barracks 14 with 39 other prisoners. His bunk had a mattress, 2 blankets, and a pillow. In Africa, he had slept on sand with a rolled-up uniform as a pillow. This was luxury. The first morning, breakfast was served at 6 a.m. Weber entered the mess hall expecting minimal rations. Instead, he found scrambled eggs, bacon, fried potatoes, toast with butter, coffee with sugar, and orange juice. He stared at the tray in disbelief. The man next to him, an older Unteroffizier named Friedrich Bauer, laughed bitterly. "Welcome to America," Bauer said, "the land where prisoners eat like kings." Weber ate slowly, savoring each bite. The eggs were real, not powdered. The bacon was crispy and salty. The toast was soft white bread, not hard Schwarzbrot. The coffee was genuine, not Ersatzgrain. And there was sugar. Real sugar, white and sweet, dissolving in the hot coffee. He thought about his wife in Hamburg. She received 250 grams of sugar per month on her ration card. That was about half a cup. This single cup of coffee probably contained a quarter of her monthly sugar ration. "How do they have so much sugar?" Weber asked Bauer. Bauer shrugged. "America grows sugar. Cuba grows sugar. They import millions of tons. They have so much they put it in everything. Bread, coffee, even ketchup has sugar." Weber could not process this. In Germany, sugar was a precious commodity, rationed strictly, used sparingly. In America, it was everywhere, abundant, taken for granted. That evening, the chocolate arrived. Dinner was served at 5:30 p.m. The prisoners lined up with their trays. They received meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, bread, and coffee. Then, as they sat down, guards walked through the mess hall handing out small wrapped bars. Weber took his bar and looked at it closely. Hershey's milk chocolate. Net weight, 1.5 ounces. He turned it over. The ingredients were listed on the back: sugar, milk, cocoa butter, cocoa, lecithin, vanillin. Simple ingredients, real ingredients. No substitutes, no chemicals. Just actual chocolate made from actual cocoa. He opened it carefully, trying not to tear the wrapper. The bar was divided into 12 rectangles, each embossed with the Hershey's name. The chocolate was smooth, dark brown, with a slight sheen. He broke off one piece. He placed it on his tongue and let it melt. The sweetness hit first, pure sugar, dissolving immediately. Then came the cream flavor, rich and smooth. Finally, the cocoa, bitter and deep, balancing the sweetness. It was perfect. It was exactly what chocolate should taste like. Ernst Weber had not cried when he was captured. He had not cried when he learned his best friend died at El Alamein. He had not cried during 13 months of captivity, but he cried over a Hershey's bar. Around him, other prisoners were experiencing the same breakdown. Friedrich Bauer held his chocolate bar in trembling hands, tears running down his face. A young private named Klaus Zimmer ate his entire bar in 30 seconds, and then vomited from eating too fast on an emotional stomach. An older corporal named Otto Schneider refused to eat his bar at all, just held it and stared at it like a religious artifact. The American guards watched in confusion. Captain James Holland, the camp commander, stood at the entrance observing. He turned to his translator, a German-American sergeant named Walter Braun. "Why are they crying over chocolate?" Holland asked. Braun watched the scene for a moment before answering. "Because they have not had real chocolate in 3 years, sir. Because in Germany, chocolate is a luxury only the wealthy can afford, and even they cannot find it anymore. Because you just gave prisoners something that German officers would consider a precious gift. They are crying because this chocolate represents how much America has and how little Germany has. They are crying because they finally understand that Germany cannot win." Holland nodded slowly. "Then make sure they get chocolate every week," he said. "I want them to understand exactly how much we have." And so began a psychological operation more effective than any propaganda. Every week, prisoners at Camp McCain received Hershey's bars, sometimes as part of rations, sometimes as rewards for work, sometimes just randomly distributed. The chocolate kept coming, endless, abundant, casual. Weber saved the wrappers from his first 10 bars. He kept them folded in his pocket like talismans. He studied the printing, the logos, the ingredient lists. Each wrapper was a small masterpiece of industrial design. Colorful, professional, mass-produced by the millions. He tried to imagine German factories producing chocolate at this scale. It was impossible. Germany lacked the cocoa, lacked the sugar, lacked the milk, lacked the factory capacity, lacked the distribution network, lacked everything required to mass-produce premium chocolate and hand it out to prisoners like it was nothing. One evening in July, Weber sat with Friedrich Bauer on the barrack steps, eating their weekly chocolate rations. The Mississippi sun was setting, turning the sky orange and purple. Cicadas sang in the distance. It was peaceful, almost surreal. "Do you know what this means?" Weber asked, holding up his half-eaten Hershey's bar. Bauer nodded. "It means we lost. Not just lost, it means we never had a chance. This chocolate probably costs 10 cents, maybe 15. The Americans make millions of these. They give them to soldiers, to workers, to children, to prisoners. They have so much sugar and cocoa that chocolate is disposable. Germany cannot even feed its soldiers real food, and America is giving prisoners premium chocolate. The gap is not just large, it is infinite." Bauer took a bite of his chocolate, chewing slowly. "I realized this on my first day," he said. "They served us eggs and bacon for breakfast. Real eggs, real bacon. I calculated the calories. Over 800 calories just for breakfast. In Africa, we were lucky to get 1,500 calories for an entire day. I knew then that Germany had lost. The chocolate just confirms it." Weber nodded. He finished his bar and carefully folded the wrapper. "How do you think this war will end?" he asked. Bauer stared at the sunset. "With Germany in ruins," he said quietly, "the Americans and Russians will destroy everything. Our cities will burn. Our people will starve. And men like us, who saw the truth too late, will have to live with the knowledge that we fought for a lie. They sat in silence, watching the sun disappear below the horizon. In August 1944, new prisoners arrived at Camp McCain, captured during the Normandy campaign. These men were in terrible condition. Wounded, exhausted, traumatized by the ferocity of the fighting. They had been told they were defending the fatherland from invasion. They had believed victory was possible. The veteran prisoners from Africa tried to prepare them. "Do not believe what you were told," Friedrich Bauer said to a group of newcomers. "America is not weak. America is not decadent. America is the richest nation on earth, and they are crushing us with their wealth. You will see. They will feed you better than German officers eat. You will gain weight. You will realize the war is lost." The new prisoners did not believe him. They thought it was defeatist talk, perhaps American propaganda designed to break morale. Then they received their first chocolate rations. A young soldier named Hans Dietrich, captured at Saint-Lô, held his Hershey's bar like it was a grenade. "What is this?" he asked suspiciously. "Chocolate," Weber replied. "Real chocolate. American chocolate. They give us one every week." Hans stared at him. "You are lying. This is propaganda. They want us to think they have abundance, but it is a trick." Weber shrugged. "Eat it or do not eat it. You will see soon enough." Hans opened the wrapper slowly, expecting it to be fake, perhaps wax molded to look like chocolate. He broke off a piece and smelled it. It smelled like chocolate. He touched it to his tongue. It tasted like chocolate. He ate the piece. It was chocolate. Real, genuine, premium milk chocolate. Hans Dietrich sat down heavily on the nearest bench. He ate another piece, then another. By the fourth piece, he was crying. Bauer sat down next to him. "Now you understand," Bauer said gently. Hans nodded, unable to speak. He ate the rest of his chocolate in silence, tears streaming down his face. Over the following weeks, the new prisoners went through the same transformation the Afrika Korps veterans had experienced. Disbelief, shock, acceptance, depression. They realized that everything they had been told was a lie. America was not weak. Germany was not superior. The war was not winnable. The chocolate became a symbol of this realization. Every week, when the Hershey's bars were distributed, prisoners sat quietly and ate them with the solemnity of a religious ritual. Some saved their bars, rationing them to make them last. Others ate them immediately, seeking comfort in sweetness. A few refused to eat them at all, viewing them as symbols of defeat and shame. Ernst Weber developed a routine. Every Sunday evening after dinner, he would eat his weekly chocolate bar slowly, one square at a time, thinking about his life. He thought about his wife, his daughter, whom he had not seen since 1941, his parents, his brother, who was fighting on the Eastern Front and was probably dead, his home in Hamburg, which was probably destroyed by Allied bombing. And he thought about the absurdity of it all. He was safe. He was well fed. He had medical care. He ate chocolate every week. Meanwhile, his family was starving, his city was burning, and his country was being destroyed. What kind of insane world created this situation? One Sunday in September, Weber was eating his chocolate when a young prisoner named Martin Fischer sat down next to him. "Can I ask you something?" Martin said. Weber nodded. "Why do you save the wrappers?" Weber looked at the small collection of folded wrappers he kept in his pocket. "These are proof," he said. "Proof of what?" "Proof of why we lost. Proof that America has so much wealth they can afford to waste it on prisoners. Proof that Germany never had a chance. Someday when this war is over, people will ask how Germany could lose to America. I will show them these wrappers and say, this is how. They mass-produced chocolate and gave it to their enemies while we fed our soldiers sawdust. That is how. Martin was quiet for a moment. Do you think we will ever go home? Weber finished his chocolate before answering. Yes, he said, eventually. But the Germany we left no longer exists. We will return to ruins. We will have to rebuild everything. And we will have to live with the knowledge that we fought for the wrong side. Martin nodded slowly. He pulled out his own chocolate bar and opened it. They ate in silence. 2 German soldiers eating American chocolate in a Mississippi prison camp, contemplating a future neither could fully imagine. October 1944. Ernst Weber was assigned to a work detail at a nearby lumber mill. He worked alongside American civilians, mostly older men and women whose sons were fighting overseas. The work was hard but not unbearable. Cutting timber, loading trucks, operating machinery, he was paid 80 cents per day in camp scrip. During lunch break, Weber sat with an American named Roy Thompson, a 58-year-old mill worker whose son was serving in France. Roy always brought extra food and shared it with the German workers. Sandwiches, apples, cookies, and sometimes chocolate. One day, Roy handed Weber a Hershey's bar. Here, he said, you boys work hard. You deserve extra. Weber took the bar, surprised. You do not have to give me this. Roy shrugged. It's just chocolate, no big deal. In Germany, this would be a very big deal. This would cost maybe 3 days' wages for a worker. Roy looked confused. 3 days' wages? For a Hershey bar? Hell, you can buy these for a nickel, 5 cents. That's like 10 minutes of work. Weber did the mental calculation. 5 cents. In German currency, that was about 20 pfennigs. In Germany, 20 pfennigs bought maybe 1 loaf of bread if you had ration cards. Here it bought premium chocolate. He looked at Roy. How does America have so much sugar? Roy thought about this. Well, we grow sugarcane in the south, sugar beets in the north. We import from Cuba and the Philippines. We got plenty of sugar. Why? In Germany, sugar is rationed very strict, maybe 250 grams per month for one person. Very precious. Roy whistled. That's rough. Here, sugar ain't rationed at all. You can buy as much as you want. Hell, my wife uses 5 pounds a week just baking. 5 pounds a week. Weber tried to process this. 5 pounds was over 2 kilograms. His wife's monthly ration was 250 grams. Roy's wife used almost 10 times that amount every week just for baking. This is why Germany is losing, Weber said quietly. Roy nodded slowly. Yeah, he said, I reckon so. That night, Weber wrote another letter to his wife. I worked today with an American man named Roy. He told me his wife uses 5 pounds of sugar every week just for baking cakes and cookies. 5 pounds. Your monthly ration is 250 grams. His wife uses almost 10 times that every week for desserts. This is not propaganda. This is not exaggeration. This is simply how much America has. They are not sacrificing. They are not rationing. They are living normally while waging war on 3 continents. We never had a chance. I see that now. I hope you can forgive me for taking so long to understand. November 1944, Thanksgiving. The American Guards informed prisoners that they would receive a special holiday meal. The prisoners were skeptical. How much better could it be than their regular meals? The Thanksgiving dinner answered that question. turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, gravy, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie, rolls with butter, coffee, and for dessert, in addition to pie, Hershey's chocolate bars. Ernst Weber sat at the table staring at his tray. This was more food than his family would eat in a week. This was a feast, served to prisoners, as if it were normal. Friedrich Bauer sat down next to him. "This is their holiday of abundance," Bauer said. "They celebrate having too much food. Only America would create a holiday about eating until you cannot eat any more." Weber picked up his chocolate bar. He did not open it, he just held it, feeling the weight. "This is obscene," he said quietly. "Yes," Bauer agreed, "but it is also honest. This is who they are. They have abundance, and they do not hide it. Germany pretended to be strong while people starved. America admits they are rich and feeds everyone, even enemies. I do not know which is more insulting." Weber finally opened his chocolate and ate it slowly. It tasted the same as always, sweet, creamy, perfect. But today it tasted like defeat. December 1944. The Battle of the Bulge began in Belgium. German forces launched a massive surprise offensive, Hitler's last desperate attempt to split the Allied armies. The prisoners at Camp McCain followed the news through camp radios and newspapers. The new prisoners from Normandy were excited. "Finally," they said, "Germany is counterattacking. Finally, we are winning again. The war is not lost." The Afrika Korps veterans knew better. Hans Dietrich, who had cried over his first chocolate bar, shook his head. "It does not matter," he said. "Even if we win battles, we cannot win the war. We do not have the resources. We do not have the production. We do not have the food. America can lose battles and keep fighting. Germany cannot." By late December, news arrived that the offensive had failed. German forces were pushed back with massive casualties. Thousands of prisoners were taken. The Eastern Front was collapsing. The war was clearly ending. On Christmas Eve, the prisoners received special rations: extra bread, butter, jam, cigarettes, coffee, and chocolate. 2 Hershey's bars each instead of the usual 1. Weber sat on his bunk holding both bars. It was Christmas Eve, 1944, his 4th Christmas of the war. His 2nd Christmas as a prisoner. His daughter was 8 years old now. He had not seen her since she was 5. She probably did not remember him. He opened 1 chocolate bar and ate it slowly. He saved the other. He did not know why. Perhaps as a gift for his daughter if he ever saw her again. Perhaps as a reminder of this strange time when he was fed better as a prisoner than he had been as a soldier. Martin Fischer sat on the bunk across from him. "What are you thinking about?" Martin asked. Weber considered the question. "I am thinking that this chocolate is a kind of weapon," he said finally. "Not a weapon that kills, a weapon that reveals truth. Every week we eat chocolate that Germany cannot produce. Every week we remember that America has abundance and Germany has scarcity. Every week we understand more clearly that the war is lost. This is psychological warfare at its finest. Feed your enemy well and they will realize fighting is pointless." Martin nodded. He opened his own chocolate. "To truth," he said, raising the bar like a toast. "To truth," Weber repeated. They ate their chocolate in silence. January 1945. The year began with clear signs that Germany was collapsing. Soviet forces were advancing into Germany from the east. American and British forces were crossing the Rhine from the west. German cities were being systematically destroyed by bombing. The end was close. At Camp McCain, life continued its routine. Work details, 3 meals a day, weekly chocolate rations. Mail from home when it got through. Radio broadcasts. Waiting for the inevitable. Ernst Weber received a letter from his wife in mid-January. It had been mailed in October and had taken 3 months to arrive. The letter was brief, written on thin paper in pencil because ink was scarce. "My dear Ernst," she wrote, "I hope this letter finds you well. We are surviving. Hamburg is destroyed. Our home is gone. We live now in a basement with 6 other families. Food is very scarce. We receive potatoes and bread, sometimes turnips. Anna asks about you every day. I tell her you will come home when the war is over. I pray this is true. I pray you are safe. I pray this nightmare ends soon. With all my love." Weber read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it carefully and placed it in his pocket next to his collection of chocolate wrappers. The contrast was unbearable. His family was starving in a basement. He was eating chocolate every week in Mississippi. That Sunday, when he received his weekly Hershey's bar, he could not eat it. He tried, but his throat closed up. He wrapped it back up and saved it. He did the same the following week, and the week after. By February, he had accumulated 6 uneaten chocolate bars. Friedrich Bauer noticed. "Why are you saving them?" he asked. "I do not know," Weber admitted. "Perhaps I feel guilty eating them while my family starves. Perhaps I want to bring them home, though they will be melted and ruined by then. Perhaps I just cannot swallow sweetness while everything is bitter." Bauer nodded. "I understand," he said. He did not try to convince Weber to eat the chocolate. Some guilt could not be reasoned away. March 1945. Spring arrived in Mississippi. The weather warmed. The prisoners worked longer hours in the lumber mills and farms. The news from Europe was uniformly bad for Germany. Cities falling, armies retreating, total collapse imminent. New prisoners arrived, captured during the Rhine crossings. These men were in the worst condition yet. Many were boys, 16 and 17 years old, conscripted in desperation. Others were old men, recalled from retirement to fill the ranks. The real army was gone. One young soldier, barely 16, arrived at Camp McCain weighing 98 pounds. He had been in the army for 6 weeks before being captured. He had received 2 weeks of training. He had never fired his rifle in combat. He had surrendered the first time he saw American tanks. His name was Peter Hoffman. He was from Dresden. He was terrified. The veteran prisoners took care of him. They shared their food. They taught him camp routines. They protected him from the few hard-line Nazi prisoners who viewed surrender as treason. And they gave him chocolate. Ernst Weber sat with Peter one evening, sharing a Hershey's bar. Peter ate his half slowly, amazed by the taste. "This is the first chocolate I have ever had," Peter said. Weber stared at him. "Never." "Never. My family was poor. Chocolate was only for rich people. Then the war started, and there was no chocolate for anyone. This is my first time." Weber felt something break inside him. This boy had never tasted chocolate in peacetime, had grown up in poverty while Nazi propaganda claimed Germany was strong and prosperous, had been sent to war as a child, and was now eating chocolate for the first time as a prisoner. What kind of nation sends children to war while claiming to be strong? Weber said quietly. Peter did not answer. He just ate his chocolate, savoring every bite. April 1945. President Roosevelt died. The prisoners heard the news on the camp radio. Some younger prisoners, still loyal to Nazi ideology, celebrated. "Now America will give up," they said. "Now we can win." The veterans knew better. Roosevelt's death changes nothing Friedrich Bauer said. America does not depend on one man. Their system is bigger than individuals. Vice President Truman will continue the war. Germany will still lose. Days later, news arrived that Hitler had committed suicide. The war in Europe was effectively over. Formal surrender came on May 8, 1945, Victory in Europe Day. At Camp McCain, the announcement was met with stunned silence. Some prisoners cried, others sat numbly. A few hardliners refused to believe it, claiming it was propaganda, but most simply accepted what they had known for months or years. Germany had lost. The war was over. The Third Reich was finished. Ernst Weber sat on his bunk holding the letter from his wife. He did not know if she was still alive. Dresden had been firebombed. Hamburg was destroyed. Communications had broken down. He had not received mail in 2 months. He did not know if his family had survived. That evening, the camp commander held an assembly. He informed the prisoners that the war was over. Germany had surrendered unconditionally. Prisoners would be repatriated eventually, but the process would take time. Germany was in ruins. There was no infrastructure to receive hundreds of thousands of returning POWs, so they would remain in American custody for now. As a gesture, the commander announced, each prisoner would receive extra rations tonight, including chocolate. The distribution happened during dinner. Ernst Weber received his tray and found 2 Hershey's bars instead of the usual 1. He stared at them. The war was over. Germany had lost everything, and America was celebrating by giving prisoners extra chocolate. He opened 1 bar and bit into it. It tasted the same as always. Sweet, creamy, perfect. But today, it tasted like ashes. June 1945. 1 year since Weber arrived at Camp McCain, the repatriation process began slowly. Priority went to wounded prisoners and those who had family documentation. Weber was healthy and had no documentation, so he waited. During this time, the weekly chocolate distributions continued. The Americans did not reduce rations just because the war ended. Prisoners still worked. Prisoners still received 3 meals daily. Prisoners still got their Hershey's bars. Weber had accumulated 15 uneaten chocolate bars. He kept them in a wooden box under his bunk. Other prisoners thought he was crazy. Why save them, they asked. They will melt, they will go bad, eat them. But Weber could not explain his reasoning. These chocolate bars represented something important. They were evidence. They were testimony. They were the story of why Germany lost, written in sugar and cocoa. In August, Friedrich Bauer was selected for repatriation. He was going back to Germany, to Munich, to find his family. He came to say goodbye to Weber. "What will you do with all that chocolate?" Bauer asked, gesturing to Weber's box. Weber shrugged. "Take it home, give it to my daughter if she is still alive. Show it to people who ask how Germany could lose to America. These bars are proof. They show that America had so much abundance they could afford to feed prisoners premium chocolate, while Germany starved." Bauer nodded slowly. "That is a good answer," he said. He shook Weber's hand. "Good luck, Ernst. I hope you find your family alive." "You too, Friedrich. Take care of yourself." They never saw each other again. September 1945. Ernst Weber was finally selected for repatriation. He packed his few belongings, clean clothes, toiletries, letters from his wife, the box of chocolate bars, and his collection of 15 Hershey's wrappers, carefully folded and preserved. The journey home took 6 weeks. Ship to England, train across France, another train into occupied Germany. Every mile revealed the scale of destruction. Cities reduced to rubble, bridges destroyed, factories gutted. people living in ruins. When Weber finally reached Hamburg, he barely recognized it. The city was gone, just piles of bricks and twisted metal. He asked about his wife and daughter. Nobody knew. He spent 3 days searching through refugee centers and displaced person camps. On the 4th day, he found them. His wife and daughter were living in a church basement with 40 other refugees. They were alive. They were thin, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. His daughter, Anna, was now 9 years old. She stared at him with suspicion. She did not remember him. He had been gone for 4 years, more than half her life. Weber knelt down and opened his bag. He pulled out the box of chocolate bars. "Anna," he said gently, "I brought you something." She looked at the box. "What is it?" "Chocolate. Real chocolate. From America." Anna's eyes went wide. She had never eaten real chocolate. She had heard about it, but never tasted it. It was a myth, a legend, something from before the war. Weber opened one of the Hershey's bars and broke off a square. He handed it to his daughter. She took it carefully, as if it were made of glass. She smelled it. Then she placed it on her tongue. The reaction was instant. Her eyes filled with tears. She started crying. Not sad crying, overwhelmed crying. The sweetness, the richness, the taste of something good in a world of ruins. Weber's wife watched this scene. Then she started crying too. And Weber, who had held himself together through years of war and captivity, finally broke down completely. The 3 of them sat in a church basement in ruined Hamburg, crying and eating American chocolate. Over the following months, Weber used his chocolate bars carefully. He traded some for food and supplies. He gave others as gifts to people who helped his family. He kept 2 bars, wrapped carefully, as reminders. In 1946, Weber found work as a translator for American occupation forces. His English, learned during captivity, was excellent. He worked in logistics, helping coordinate food distribution. He watched as American ships unloaded tons of supplies, food, medicine, building materials, and yes, chocolate. One day, a shipment arrived containing cases of Hershey's bars destined for German children. Weber helped unload the shipment. He opened one case and saw thousands of chocolate bars, identical to the ones he had been given as a prisoner. An American officer noticed Weber staring at the chocolate. "Something wrong?" the officer asked. Weber shook his head. "No, sir. I was just thinking about how these chocolate bars ended the war." The officer looked confused. "I think tanks and bombers ended the war." "No, sir. Those won battles. But chocolate ended the war. Chocolate showed us that we could never win. Every chocolate bar we received as prisoners reminded us that America had infinite resources and Germany had nothing. That realization broke us more completely than any weapon." The officer thought about this. Then he picked up a Hershey's bar and handed it to Weber. "Well, the war's over now. No more prisoners. Just people trying to rebuild. You want one?" Weber took the bar. "Thank you, sir." That night, he gave the chocolate to his daughter. She ate it slowly, savoring each bite. She was slowly gaining weight, slowly returning to health, slowly learning to smile again. Ernst Weber never forgot the lesson of the chocolate. Abundance defeats scarcity. Production wins wars. And sometimes, the most devastating weapon is not a bomb or a bullet, but something sweet that reveals the truth. In 1950, Weber started a small business importing American goods to Germany, including Hershey's chocolate. By 1955, he was one of the largest candy distributors in Hamburg. By 1960, German children were eating American chocolate regularly, and few remembered the war years when chocolate was a myth. Weber kept one Hershey's bar from his original collection, preserved in a glass case in his office. When clients asked about it, he told them the story, how he cried when he first tasted it, how it revealed that Germany had lost, how abundance defeated scarcity. He died in 1989 at the age of 71. His daughter inherited his business. She kept the preserved chocolate bar in her own office, along with the 15 wrappers her father had saved. These artifacts told a story that books often missed, the story of how World War II was won not just with weapons, but with chocolate. Today, Hershey's chocolate is sold worldwide, including in Germany. Few people remember that these bars once served as weapons of psychological warfare. Few understand that German prisoners wept when they first tasted American sweetness. But the lesson remains. Wars are not won by bravery alone. They are won by industrial capacity, resource abundance, and the ability to produce so much that you can afford to be generous, even to your enemies. America did not defeat Germany by being crueler or more ruthless. America defeated Germany by being richer, by having so much sugar, cocoa, and milk that they could give chocolate to prisoners while Germans starved, by mass-producing sweetness while Germany manufactured bitterness. That was the power of the Hershey's bar. Not the taste, though that was important, but the meaning. Each bar represented a truth that German propaganda tried to hide. America was not weak. America was not decadent. America was overwhelmingly, incomprehensibly, undeniably rich. And in war, wealth wins. Ernst Weber understood this in June 1944 when he opened his first Hershey's bar. Germany understood this in May 1945 when they surrendered unconditionally. And the world learned this lesson in the years after, as American abundance reshaped the global economy. The chocolate was never just chocolate. It was proof. It was testimony. It was the war in miniature, wrapped in silver and brown paper. And it tasted like victory. If you found this story fascinating, there are hundreds more untold stories from World War II waiting to be discovered. Subscribe to ensure you never miss these remarkable accounts of courage, sacrifice, and transformation.